Welcome back to the 4% Business Owner television show here on Web TV.
Web TV.
We are feeling very excited today. More organized.
Always more organized. It's a good thing.
We'll just keep getting more organized with these. Starting to get a few of these under our belt, and we're still leaving the first ones live so that when it may be 6 months, we'll look back and go, man, we've come a long way, Jim.
Continuous improvement, I think they call that.
Yes, exactly. Being willing to be bad in order to get good.
Yeah.
Which is really the mantra of all of business.
All business.
Right.
Big learning curve.
It is, and it's interesting because that learning curve can be a little invisible. People think, I'm starting a web design firm, I need to get good at web design. And yes, you might need to still improve that skill, but you're actually already good at web design. And that's why you started the business. Right. The learning curve is I need to get good at selling web design, and I need to get good at each stage in my business. Now, that is something that is typically invisible to people, the idea that there are stages in your business. And when you get started, you might not even have that hope yet that you're going to reach another stage, right? You start in this moment and you prove to yourself, I can get this far. What happens once you've proven that to yourself, though, is it can be a little surprising.
Right.
You have a term for it when somebody discovers that they are succeeding, that you have that little description.
They'll look up. Yes, it's one of the ways we work with clients is, of course, assisting them in growing the wealth that their business is producing, because ultimately your business wants to be your wealth engine. For a small business owner, it's where most of the value in your life and your estate and your household is going to come from your business, of course. So it's very common for us to have clients arrive at the point where they've had their head down, because business owners, we all have our heads down working on or in the business, but very much have our heads down. And there comes a point where you have regular income and the amount of money that your company's making is in excess of what you're consuming in your life and putting your kids through school or whatever else you spend your money on outside your business. And when you get to that point, most business owners look up and go, I've actually built something here that is larger than myself, more than what I produced as a solopreneur or the skills that I had. So I built something here, and they look up and they go, okay, what do I do with this thing now? I built it.
Yeah. What next? As a business coach, I will often see people at an earlier stage where just for a moment, they maybe wake up at 2 a.m, gasping, going, how am I going to keep doing this? They've reached a level of unpredictable success where they maybe had a great month, but then they had a terrible month. They think they've got something fixed, but it isn't consistent. They haven't actually identified how they fixed it and then prodded into the process. So they look up and they go, I can't keep working 60 hours a week. I can't keep financing payroll. I don't know how to keep afloat. And so today we're talking about these invisible transitions that they're part of the process, that nobody really tells you is going to happen to you or for you, depending on how you'd like to frame it. And they can feel pretty tough.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? They can make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Right? Even the good opportunities can feel like, how do I manage this? Why don't I have the talent, the skill, the knowledge, the wisdom in place to manage what just happened in my business?
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about those transitions today. And one of the things you'll often hear us say is that planning is a process, not a task. In business planning, it can feel like multiple processes because as you're getting started, there's this phase in your business where you're feeling out the market, finding out what will sell, how it will sell, what you need to say, what you need to do. Also, ideally, figuring out who you love to serve and what you like to do. We call that surviving.
Right. Also, we were speaking a little bit earlier about the process of how do I make or deliver one?
Yes.
What is it? How do I deliver it? Who do I deliver it to? How do I make money at it? How do I do one of these things, whatever your thing is, whether it's a service or a product?
And as you get started, creating that one thing, you probably had an idea of what it would look like. And then, when plans hit reality, you need to dodge and weave and duck and twist and really craft the business as you're discovering what's working and what isn't.
Famous boxing saying, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face. So, not that they're all bad surprises. You often have very good surprises in business. You have a customer and they love what you do, and all of a sudden you got 10 times the orders. Like that kind of surprise as well. Equally challenging to deal with, but also good surprises.
And as a business owner, it can be hard to tell people that you have a problem, and the problem is that you've got great business. You've got wonderful opportunity coming in. And in fact, it can be a problem because you're at this stage, but you haven't hit the stage we call stable yet, where you really know that you know that you know what you know about how to create the one thing, what your business is in this iteration at this level.
Yeah, the idea about product, the idea about who your market is, the idea about how to service whatever it is that you sell after the fact, if that's a component of your business, that takes a period of exploration. I think, the short end of that period would be a year, sort of experientially, and I think the normal period would be something closer to 3 years to really figure out what it is you're delivering, what is the one. All the details around how to deliver one of the things that you do efficiently and effectively in a way that satisfies your customers.
And you may spend a lot of time, if you're like most business owners, focusing on the client flow, figuring out how to attract leads, turn them into clients, serve the clients, and hopefully get referrals and testimonials. So if that takes that year, you can have other aspects of the business that can surprise you, like income tax time.
Speaking of which, we're recording this on April 29th, and personal taxes are due on Monday. So we're having some discussions with clients, both on the personal side and on the corporate side. Even though we don't do taxes ourselves, they're an important part of the financial planning work that we do with clients. And yes, taxes are often a surprise to clients.
So at this transition time, you realize that there's maybe already HR needs, and you don't know how to do those tasks yet. You don't know how to wear that hat well yet. There's admin, there's head office, and I know in your org chart that may have 12 legs, but in each of the boxes it says me and me and me and me and me, and you're doing all the things, and you might not know all the hats you need, like the finance hat and the admin hat. And at the end of a year, just as income tax season's rolling around and your year end is creeping up on you, that can be the time where you suddenly realize you need to break out a couple more hats, right, or find somebody to wear them.
Absolutely. The thoughtfulness of building a business, the sort of considering all aspects of making one effectively, one of the tools that can be used to think that process through is an organization chart. And when you lay out an organization chart, which all advanced businesses do on a regular basis, because people need to know what they're accountable and responsible for, and obviously in a very small business where you're making and building or servicing the one thing, your name is in every box, but having identified the box really gives you an opportunity to make sure that the white spaces that might exist between adjacent boxes that tend to cause business problems are considered at least, right, even if not addressed because you don't have the resources.
Right. So at this stage, as you're saying, how do I make this business really stable? You'll discover that you have spent some time being all things to all people, because we all go through that where we're saying, oh, somebody asked for this, so I did it. Or this person didn't really fit what I was looking for as a client, but you know what? I can help them. And the I can is a big part of that survival just before you really get stable. So the ability to 80-20 all the things is what helps you become stable. What are the 20% of products or services that really move the needle, that are profitable? And then as you're digging into that, realizing there's some analysis that would be valuable. And one of the things we do with our clients as we're stabilizing is do a product line profitability and dig in and tease that apart, right? Because that can be not readily apparent, especially depending on your belief in your success as you started the business.
Right. And when we say the one thing, we don't necessarily mean one thing, of course. Lots of products and services have multiple aspects. And it is often surprising for new business owners, people in the survival mode on their way to stable mode, to realize that some of the things that they do, although you may understand it intuitively, it's interesting to see numbers analyzed that say, look, if my revenue is $500,000, 400 of it is this thing that I do that if I break out my cost of delivering that thing, I make money at that, and the other 100 I'm actually losing money at. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a thing that you should be aware of. You may decide that the 100,000 is actually what allows you to bring in the 400,000, so loss leader sort of concept. But it's you don't know what you don't know till you know it.
Right, and then having the ability to start pulling that apart now that you've got data, now that you have some experience, it's time to take a step back and say, what do I want to keep doing? What do I want to double down on? And maybe what kind of clients, including current clients, do I want to fire, right?
Yes.
This is to set up that one single operation business that you can work in, maybe have a couple of employees at this point that are serving in the business, that in that continuum. You also start positioning yourself more strongly in the marketplace when you do this work. Right? One of the things that actually makes you stable is really looking back at that marketing plan and saying, and what's true now?
Yes.
Right, so
it's an iterative process.
Yes.
To go back, your marketing planning is very much a process, and it's very much an iterative process. Business plans are not like some legal documents you might do when you set up your business, where you do it and then you stick it in a drawer and maybe you never look at it again until you sell your business. Planning is a process that needs regular, thoughtful attention so that the learnings that you develop inform your future appropriately. So you know where you're going with the best possible, most current data.
And you're not alone anymore, even if you're just alone in your business, that you're a sole proprietor still at this stage, because you also have your customers now. So you have a wealth of information that you can pull on at this stage, and some processes that make it super simple, maybe not easy, but super simple to identify where you are and what you really want to focus on in the coming year. At this stage, the very bare minimum of planning that you should be pulling into place and checking on is that business model canvas, a super simple one-page business plan, but also a marketing plan that goes a little deeper, that allows you to know what do you and your clients believe are your differentiators in the marketplace. You may have heard that your brand isn't your logo, it's not your colors, it's not even the words you say. It is the belief that your clients have about who you are in the marketplace. So that's the stable level. So that first transition point from I'm surviving to I'm stable can be incredibly invisible because it happens very incrementally. Your business is still growing very incrementally at this stage, and it can without harming anybody except you, right? You start working 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours, and suddenly you do look up and go, oh, this isn't sustainable.
Right.
So once you fix that, all those pieces, and it doesn't stay that way because your business continues to generate business, get noticed in the marketplace, you're learning and growing, you're hiring a few more key people, and now the next transition is that one where you look up and you go, I've made something separate from me, and you're going from stable to scalable.
Right. And some business owners might find that first transition into the stability emotionally feels like okay, I know what I'm doing today. I'm going into the office. I know who my customers are. I have been able to hire an employee to take some things, or 2 employees or 3 employees, take some things off my plate. I know what I deliver. I'm very comfortable. That's a very good feeling that you've hit that first transition, that you're approaching stability because you know how to deliver the one thing.
Right. And then as you're building that team, one of the things that can tell you you're not at scalable and that stable may not be enough is that you're making all the decisions still. Right. You're putting out fires. If you were to go away on vacation, the business shuts down, or else you're sitting on the beach and you've got your cell phone, you've got your laptop, and you've got your spouse going, what are you doing? Right.
The possibility of somebody coming in with an order for 10 of your one things at the same time means that while you're stable, that would be a challenge. So the next step is, how do I replicate the one thing without whatever your direct involvement in the business was going to be or is on an ongoing basis? Right. So how do I make 10 things without working 80 hours a day?
And at this point, you really get into your processes and systems, because you don't want to scale garbage. You don't want to scale headaches and problems. So taking the time to really identify what are the systems that allow us to fulfill in a way that is efficient, that doesn't require the business owner or even one single linchpin in the organization to be super productive, but for the business to be productive and efficient. And that's where you'll hear about the E-Myth Revisited or systemology. How do I capture what my people are doing? Or better, how do my people capture what we do so that we know how we do it and can change, grow, improve, and replicate?
Sometimes people call that institutionalizing. So whatever it is that you do making your one, how do you institutionalize that so that it is built on processes that are independent of you?
Right, which means getting it all out of your head,
Yep.
Getting that gut feeling and putting it on paper, getting that, well, you just know how to do it, and having somebody shadow you and really pull that out and pull it apart so that someone else can do what until now you may not have even trusted other people to do, right? And that's a lot of mindset work. At this point, as you're thinking about scale, that's where it's so vitally important that you step out of what we call T4 mindset and step into the fact that your value is return on risk. You're not being paid for the hours you're putting in, but for the fact that you have created a company that is employing people and generating value in the marketplace.
Right.
Which means you're not spending all your time in operations anymore.
Or possibly any time in operations anymore.
Or possibly any, yes.
Yeah.
Right? Because as you're building that business that is separate from you, it's literally separate from you. That you could be on a beach in Costa Rica for 3 months and your business continues to grow and maybe better than if you were there, because you've employed the right people for the right processes in your systems.
And the scaling can be quite a... Scaling generally isn't a linear process. So if I make one this way, I'll make 10 by doing the same thing 10 times. It usually involves fundamentally rethinking the process of delivering the one thing. But you know what the one thing is, and you know what the clients want, and you know how to invoice for it, and you know how much money you're going to make off it. Now it's, how do I deliver that one thing? So if you're in the toy business, for example, and you've been hand making wooden toys, you can't scale, generally don't want to scale by adding a number of toy makers in a factory. Here, you might think about adding machinery. You might think about maybe outsourcing some of the manufacturing pieces. So you're still delivering a toy. You still want it to the quality on brand that your clients expect from you. But that process of growing is really an interesting part of business. To step away and go, how do I get 10 times larger without doing 10 times what I'm doing now?
And at this point, your business model itself can change. Who you're working with, who you're selling to, whether you're actually even speaking to the end user client through your business or whether you're actually distributing. There's a lot of shifts that can happen that change how you generate the money even though the solution that you have, the problem you solve is still the same, that change is something to be aware of. And again, it's an invisible, under the surface thing that you might not notice in another company. You just go, man, they're growing.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to financially model and business model the transition is very vital at this stage in order to say, all right, we're here. At this point as well, as you got stable, we talk about product line profitability. As you're looking to scale, then it requires that micro CFO analysis and possibly some industry mentorship as well.
Right. You're usually into a model when you're scaling or depending on how big you're going to get or want to get or expect to get, there's often investment required. And as soon as you start getting into investment decisions beyond your own labor or the labor of your one or two employees, that has to be done. Again, I use the word thoughtful a lot, but that has to be done thoughtfully and analytically so that you can determine up front all the pieces of the plan speaking to each other at this point. Because if you're going to make an investment in a machine, then your marketing plan has to talk about how you're actually going to deploy the output of the machine in order to make sure you can make money on the investment in the machine. But that analysis is more in depth, I guess, more financially oriented even.
And I think what you may be worried about or wondering along all of this is that sounds complicated. It doesn't sound like something I can do. And that is the biggest shift in your mindset at this point is, it isn't something that you personally can do, or at least shouldn't even do unless you have a background in accounting and CFO work, right? If you're coming to this business with that background, beautiful, right? One of the things I value about having Jim is in our business is that he's got a broad range of CFO experience that he can bring to analyze those numbers and really understand the story behind them. And there's a lot of aspects of your org chart where you start looking at it and saying, who should be doing this instead of me? And now analyzing, what are my $1,000 an hour tasks? Right. Where is the value in what I'm doing versus replacing me with people who are actually more talented? And that is a big shift in being able to manage your fears, manage your imposter syndrome, become very confident in understanding where your value comes from.
The task actually becomes learning about business.
Yes.
So business shouldn't be something that happens to you. It's something that you can learn about with the right mentors, with the right coaching, with someone like Cher. You can learn about business. And once you've learned about business, you can apply the business knowledge to any product or service. The rules of business don't change from product to product. You need specific industry knowledge. You need to know how to sell. So there are lots of other skills, but the way business works is consistent. A very good example of that in the news today, because it's late April 2022, is Elon Musk just acquired Twitter. So you could say, well, why would somebody who builds cars and sends spaceships into space want to buy a social media platform? Because Elon Musk understands business.
Right. And more locally, one of the things that I really love that we do is help you understand just what you need to know on this, right? So it's your business. So we can take all this knowledge and not send you off to get an MBA to be able to run and grow your business. We have a client, Noreen, that is availing herself of the micro CFO portion of what we do. So from the marketing plan Noreen and I developed together, we figured out who she is, who she serves. We've got her business model mapped out. We know how she plans to stand out in the marketplace in the coming year. And she's now taking that knowledge, that wisdom, and sitting with Jim to understand what are the key numbers that she needs to understand in her financial statements, and how does she pay attention to them? How does she make decisions about them? So she's actually going to be sitting with Jim to understand that in the first place, but then every month for 3 months sitting down with her financial statements and looking and getting the wealth of Jim's analysis so that that becomes a skill that she has about her own business. Just hugely empowering.
And she doesn't expect to, and we certainly don't expect her to become a finance person.
Right.
So this is a mechanism that allows her to have the financial insight, partly develop her own skills, but really to have the external financial insight to allow her to get to the next phase of growth, which, depending on how big the business gets, may actually have her hiring a controller or hiring a CFO or hiring a virtual CFO, because there are companies that provide those services as well. So this is all a continuum of growth. And the business owner needs to pick up a level of knowledge that allows them to identify the right resources to add to their business on a part-time or full-time business basis as they grow.
Back when I was a web designer, I used to think that I should have been also a tech coach, because you would be getting your website done, you'd be getting your email series set up, you'd be doing ads and putting placement out there. But there were all these disparate pieces, and people didn't usually know how they fit together. And that's one of the things that can be so challenging and distract you, right? You've heard of the distracted by squirrels and shiny object syndrome, because you don't have that full comprehensive plan. So if at this stage you're running a business without a business plan because you're saying, well, I don't need financing, you need that internal plan so that you know who you are and where you're growing, and you can actually measure that and see, are we on track? It gives you this place of real confidence.
Right. We've been working with a number of clients who are at the growing stage where they actually do need, for example, systems, and are don't have the expertise in-house to identify operationally what the system's needs might be, and then specifically to select the systems and implement them in a way that is actually going to allow them to scale their business, to go from making one to making 100. And those are skills that the business owner needs to recognize that they don't have, and then to hire the people to get that work done for them.
So at this stage, to know, have I become scalable? Go away for 4 weeks. Go on vacation. If you come back and your business has grown, you have achieved scale. You now know how to do what you just did to create the one thing, so that you could do it again. It is replicatable.
Exactly. An interesting aspect of this model is that once you've developed the one, stabilized the one, now scaled the one, in the context of that business, you get to go and introduce new products or services. So it's going back to the, how do I sell one of these extra things in this framework? And that's how businesses grow product lines.
Right. And so knowing that there is a process, right? This business know-how, if you are struggling with a challenge, we had a client come in last week who was struggling with just business development. He could not get consistent leads, but he didn't know why. Right? He thought maybe his tactics were off. So where we start is, how do we know if your tactics are off? Are you running to plan? What's your business plan? What's your marketing plan? They did not exist. So in the absence of that, I was able to dig into, well, how are you positioned in the marketplace? What do you mean? Right? In the absence of a marketing plan, it's hard to know who you are. And it's hard for you to tell other people who you are, which makes you more prone to have to copy other people and just try to be better at doing what they already do, instead of being different yourself. You can fall into that idea of being status quo and just being better at status quo. Right. And that is just a no-win game.
I just love analogies. So it's very much like a road trip. Our clients, the clients that we're able to help the most successfully, are the ones who have a destination in mind. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the journey and looking around and seeing what you're seeing as you're going. But unless you have a destination, it's very hard, to affect the journey. So nothing wrong with enjoying the journey, but the destination, in business at least, the destination is what allows you to progress.
Right. And that can be hard for people to define what success is. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have in place an annual planning session, then you may not realize you've already achieved the success from 2 years ago, and now you're running without a compass again. Which brings us to the next level in the business continuum, which is saleable. If you're thinking of building a business that you might sell one day, then there are some different things that come into play at this stage. And typically, at this point, we've been working with clients for a while before they get here, because this is a step in the continuum that requires a lot of foresight.
A lot of foresight, and the big question in the saleable piece, or another way of thinking about that, is when you want to exit your business, and not everybody does, but what is going to happen to your business way down the road, is the very circular thought process of what do I want and what's possible with my business. And those are not fixed things. So what you want is probably limited by what you think is currently possible in your business. And then as you explore and create a business plan and get stable and get scalable, what's possible really starts to expand, and that might change what you want. So that process goes until you get to the point where you go, the possibilities that I have ended up understanding, I've actually realized in my business, and I have what I want. And then at that point, you're probably prepared to step away from your business in a more permanent sense, in a saleable sense.
And this brings us to why it is wise to have a plan, wise to have a coach. I was actually talking to a client last week, and he said, so you talk about coaching people from point A, where are you now in your business, to point B, what does success, like real success for you, for your lifestyle, for your family, for your future, what does that look like? And then they design what's point B. And he was very, very cute about how he's like, my point B when I met you was this big. And just a month in, as we start looking at business know-how and really modeling out what success could be and how to get there, right? Backward engineering that level of success, it just seems so easy and doable. And now I want to change my point B already.
What a great experience for that client.
Yeah.
To really know that the limitations were related to their business knowledge, not related to what the business was capable of.
Absolutely. That's an amazing distinction, right?
Yeah.
That you may think you're not capable of growing to a stage because of the lack of business know-how. I was talking with Noreen this week and looking at logically, and I say that logically, and it's very exciting because my logic is how I vision for you in the future. If this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And we went from really super simple, how do you position yourself, to what would that look like in 3 years? And then we backward engineered it. And she was incredibly excited because that backward engineering part and seeing long term apparently are not typical skills. You know, they say, figure out what's easy for you. That's probably your superhero power because other people don't do that very well.
Right.
But I love that work. And so she left here and she said, I had to go for a drive and calm down because I'm so excited. I see how I can grow. But it was all just business model and strategy. It wasn't. And she said, the other side of what was exciting is I know what I'm doing. My instincts are on track. My knowledge is on track. She's got 30 years of experience in her industry, 3 years in her business. So she can actually go a lot on gut, because she has decades of experience in the industry.
Right.
So we don't often advise gut as how to make business decisions, but in her case, it worked. And so she said, everything you said, I still get to stand in my strengths, and even more so, and have the business plan support the dream that I can now dream.
And the plan evolves. So you have one thing today, and in 5 years, you've stabilized that, you've scaled that, you're still interested in your industry, whatever it is. Most people are driven by whatever it is they're experts at, the field they're at, and then you start adding products and you start adding And all of a sudden, the business is larger, so the possibilities are larger. So what you can expect to realize out of that business is larger. So it's a very, very exciting, very iterative process.
And you're being someone new, right? If you think back to who you were when you first started this business and who you are now, you have grown so much. It is mind-boggling, the personal development, the knowledge, the wisdom, the levels of mastery in your business that you've achieved in serving your clients and delivering. If you can just take a moment and think 3 years ahead, it is exponential who you're becoming in 3 years as well, which can be a surprising thing for people, right? You will grow into the success that you're envisioning developing and becoming the business owner who can do that work.
Exactly.
It's a continuum.
It is
and
the
it's
funnest thing to do.
It's a business continuum and a personal continuum.
Absolutely.
And really that it all goes together, right? It's adulthood development and it's helping you become the business leader, the pillar of the community that you look at those other people and go, what does he have or what does she have that I don't have yet? And this is it. It's about looking for the needs and the gaps at the transition stage you're at now. Right? If you're feeling some pain of too much excitement and not sure how to handle it, too much work and not know how to deal with it, if you're experiencing something going wrong, chances are those are signs of success, not failure, as long as you get the support you need.
Yes. Yes.
And recognize that it's a transition.
Absolutely. Growth, as we've said before, is the most challenging thing in business, and to have the right team around you and the right direction and the right business knowledge that you can tap into is a large part of de-risking that growth period in your business.
So we have a download for this. It's a little complex. It takes many of these different layers of mindset, strategy, cash concerns. How do you recognize you're at a transition and which transition you're at? As you look through it, you'll notice that some of the signs or symptoms of being at scale and being at stable you have both of them. Totally normal, right? It's about awareness and recognizing that there are ways to manage every opportunity and every challenge based on where you are now and where you want to grow to.
That's fantastic.
I think that sums it up very nicely.
It does.
Well, thanks for having this conversation with me, Jim, and thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.